All right, everyone, we are back this morning. Elder law attorney Chris Johnson is joining us. He's with Takacs and McGinnis. Always good to have him on. He is just so darn knowledgeable because he's a former Marine. Yeah, you can't help it. You are.
This is true.
And you're proud of it. And now you are a lawyer. And
I'm very, very proud of it. You can see behind my shoulder.
Absolutely, you should be. Hey, listen, my friend, we came into the show talking about some of these issues facing, seniors that they're targeted. And I'm going to share someone I heard from, and I'll bring up her story. But you mentioned that you've seen more of this coverage lately, and you deal with a lot of seniors and their finances and what they do moving forward. What's the grandchild scam?
The grandchild scam has been around for a little bit of time now. We actually had it, the Hendersonville Police Department actually posted about one where they busted it, which we were very, very satisfied outcome. But what happens is they kind of call it social engineering. So these scammers, these really bad people, these fraudsters get online and they learn kind of all the key players in the family, who are mom and dad, who are grandma and grandpa, who are the grandchildren. And then what they do is they try and pick a grandchild that's obviously living out of town, somewhere where there's some distance involved, so the story isn't easily vetted. And what they do is they call grandma or grandpa and they pretend that they are the grandchild, and they know all the names, they know the key players, and we know, hey, cell phones, it can be hard to hear sometimes, and if you're elderly, your hearing isn't perfect either. And this person on the other line seems to know all the key players, and they say it goes just like this. They say, Grandma, Grandpa, I'm in trouble. It's so-and-so, and I need you to promise me something, though. Before I tell you anything else, you got to promise me not to tell Mom and Dad.
Right.
And that is a key social engineering point, because what they are doing is they are cutting Grandma and Grandpa from their safety net, from their checks and balances on things. And then what they say is they get that promise, and they say, I'm in jail, I'm scared, I'm surrounded by some really bad people, and I need you to wire me bail money. And then what they'll do is they'll put kind of what you would think is a reasonable amount. They don't want to go, they're not going to ask for $100,000 or $500,000. They're going to ask for $5,000, $10,000, $15,000, a number that a grandparent, although will probably not be super happy about transferring, they won't have a lot of reservation in transferring that money to help their grandchild. And so what happens is they don't tell anyone, they transfer the money goes to an account, the account gets drained and closed, and the scammer gets away with the money, and then grandma and grandpa doesn't hear anything about it again. And then the next family function, they see that grandchild, and the grandchild is just acting like nothing happened, because to them, nothing happened. And then the realization suddenly hits in on the grandparent, and this is where the real nefarious part of it hits. Then the grandparent gets embarrassed, and they don't want to tell anybody because they're afraid people will start to think they can't manage their own affairs, they can't take care of themselves anymore, and they're worried how the family will react. And so now they're not going to report it. It is a really, really evil scam. It has been, as you can hear from the description, it has been fairly successful, and we hear lots of different reports about it. I know it was reported in the national news, I think just yesterday, and I know that Hendersonville Police Department just, I think a couple months ago, they busted someone who was dumb enough to, instead of asking for the money to be wire transferred, as I recall from the story, they asked for it to be put in a shoebox and they would show up. And thank goodness that the senior citizens called the police, and the police were there waiting for them. But these people are out there every day trying to take advantage of our seniors and our elderly community, and we got to root it out.
I'll tell you what makes me so mad is they're targeting the most vulnerable. These are folks that, so often I hear people say, well, how could they fall for this? And I don't take that at all. I think that you're dealing with seniors, some of whom, beginning to slow down a bit mentally but are trusting, and I'll tell you what, these folks, when they get on the horn with them, are slick. They've got set up background. You'd be amazed the type of information you can, glean by going on Facebook or Google about someone's background and family. And so these people are not stupid, okay? They may be a bit naive and perhaps a bit too trusting, but I'll tell you what, these folks are slick, and I sympathize, and they are the scum of the earth who target these people, who, again, are those who could least afford to lose this money as well.
That's exactly right. And I think you nailed it. It is not a question of, oh, how could you fall for this? You hit the nail on the head, Nick. They come prepared in these scams because it's worth the price of admission. A couple hours of research to get a $10,000 or $15,000 payday, that's very much worth it to them. And think about all of us. When we're talking to someone that we know or trust or we believe that we know because we think they are who they say they are, we all let our guard down. It's why those spam emails where they what's called spoofing, a friend of yours name or one of your parents, email addresses, and you think it's from them, and you automatically want to click on it. How many of us have clicked on a link we weren't supposed to because it came from what we thought was a friend because we didn't look at it closely? That's the social engineering impact of this, is they use that to get the guard let down, and then they try and isolate them from the other trusted family members. And that 1-2 punch is very effective and very devastating. And these people, they need to be stopped.
Absolutely. Problem is, once you give them the money, they disappear and it's never recovered. That's the thing. It's very, very rarely are they ever caught. That's the problem. So the key is prevention. Hey, we'll talk more about this, but we've got a call from Mark. Let's take that. Good morning, Mark.
Good morning, Nick.
Hey, what's on your mind, my friend?
I got a 84-year-old auntie that's staying in the room house is roach infested. Her door is busted. The landlord won't fix the door, and roaches all over the place. She won't fix anything else.
Is she a senior? Is she a senior citizen?
Yeah, she's a citizen. She's 84 years old.
Okay, and I don't know if you can help on this front, but we know there are seniors sometimes that obviously are living on fixed incomes, paycheck to paycheck, and some of them are in rental, situations. This gentleman's calling about a friend of his who apparently is living in a situation where the landlord, and we don't know all the details on both sides here, but is not addressing some of the needs this older woman needs. How do you handle this when, someone, it may be a legal issue, is living somewhere and they can't get a response from whoever their landlord is?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I think we can field this one. There's two aspects of it. So, Mark, the first thing is, and it could be a little over the top, but it really depends on the situation. I believe I heard roach infested. Yep. I heard the door was busted. If there comes down to a point where her physical safety is in jeopardy because the conditions are so bad, you could always involve Adult Protective Services, which would kind of ratchet things up a little bit, because they would look at that situation and probably go right to the landlord and say, hey, you need to address these issues. Usually we're doing that when the adult can't really help themselves, but it sounds like she's been unable to help herself in this. As far as her situation, what I would do if I were her is you can reach out. There are community kind of legal assistance offices that'll help people who don't have enough money. I used to actually volunteer at one from time to time, and you'd go down. Landlord-tenant issues were very high on the list, and I'm so sorry, the name is escaping me. I will make sure I have it by the time we're back from the break. But these offices you can go to, they don't charge you anything. They can write a letter to the landlord. They can give you some tools and even, how to take an action in court and kind of represent yourself pro se, and give you some basic starter documents, kind of some forms to do that and fill out with the court. But going straight to the landlord and doing your best to hold their feet to the fire, they have a responsibility to make sure that dwelling is a habitable dwelling. And so obviously major roach infestation, doors where it's not so broken so they're not secure. Those are things that are certainly need to be remedied by the landlord. And again, it's just going through those proper steps. So if I were you, Mark, I might reach out to the landlord on her behalf and say, listen, we just want to get this resolved. We're not trying to be difficult on this. I always say, always start with honey before vinegar. I think it sometimes can be effective. And if that's not effective, then find one of those community legal offices that provides legal aid. And So it's the Legal Aid Society of Nashville. That's what I knew would pop in my head. I don't know why I was drawing a blank on that. But if you call the Legal Aid Society, they should be able to set up an appointment for her and give her some basic stuff and maybe draft a letter and make a phone call or two. But they are a resource there. But your aunt is tailor-made for them. This situation is right up their alley.
Gotcha. On that note, thank you for helping him out on that and her, hopefully. We're going to take a break.
Absolutely.
We'll be back. More with Chris Johnson right after this.